These are the three most popular portable smartphone gimbals in the market today: the DJI OM7P, the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro, and the Hohem iSteady V3. And I have reviewed each one of them, so I leave a link in the video description below for when you finish watching this video, hopefully to the very end. And why do you need a gimbal in the first place anyway? Because phones these days have really good stabilization. As a matter of fact, in some instances, you don't really need a gimbal. I mean, if you're doing fairly simple walking shots, you don't really need a gimbal. But a gimbal is going to give you a range of shots that you just cannot do when you're holding the phone in your hand. The great thing about these portable gimbals is that you can easily fit them in a camera bag, in a backpack, or even in the pocket in your trousers, and you get that level of quality literally in a matter of seconds. So the way I'm going to do this video is very simple. First, I'm going to tell you what each of these three gimbals do the same, and then the differences. And the first one and most obvious is the size and weight. And these three gimbals are very similar and they weigh almost the same. There might be a difference of grams. It's not like you're gonna be grabbing one of these gimbals and it feels like you are lifting a dumbbell in a gym. These are very lightweight gimbals, and the difference between one and the other, in my opinion, you just can't tell. And when it comes to payload, these are compact portable gimbals, so the payload is obviously gonna be a lot less than if you have a much larger gimbal, but with that comes a much larger size. And in that regard, you have around the 300 gram up and down. Basically, it's enough for the phone, a case, and a filter. You may be able to do the odd shot here and there for about a minute or two with a lens, but eventually the gimbal is gonna give way. So in my opinion, any of these three gimbals are to be used with just about a filter, and that's it. Now, another thing that these three gimbals do is a selfie stick. And this is not a matter of comparing who's got the longest stick in inches. They all do it, and that's as far as this should go, really. I mean, a selfie stick is a selfie stick. I mean, this is not rocket science. And the next thing that these three gimbals do is that each one of them has some built-in fit. And this is one of the nuances that I want to make a point here, okay? The DJI has some fit that personally, I think the implementation is not great, okay? They're very wobbly. I mean, you get a little bit of wind and this thing dance like it's on a dance floor. The Hohem gimbal has some really nice fit that they actually do the job. They're sturdy, stable. The Insta360, the original Flow was horrible, but they've got their act together and they have improved this. So even though all these three have gimbal fit, the Flow 2 Pro is much more sturdier. I mean, to the point that this is actually useful. And all three have a 1/4-inch thread at the bottom, which is something that I recommend to maybe just get some small gimbal fit. Will actually give you better stability than the built-in one. And if you want to get the best out of these gimbals and record videos for any type of social media, I have a fully dedicated free PDF ebook with a complete breakdown of everything that you need to do to shoot stunning videos for social media. I think it's gonna be really helpful for you. And when it comes to setup time, these three gimbals are very quick. Now, in that regard, the DJI and the Insta360 gimbals are a bit quicker than the Hohem one, and it's to do with the mounting mechanism that these gimbals use. Either the DJI or the Insta360, they use this magnetic clamp that is actually really good and sturdy, but means that you can pop on and off the smartphone a lot quicker than with the Hohem, that you have a clamp and you have to clamp the phone. All that being said, we're not talking about minutes here, we're talking about seconds. So there is an advantage for having a built-in clamp, and it's the fact that you feel that the phone is a lot safer on the Hohem than it is on these two. Nothing is going to get the phone off this gimbal. Whereas with the magnet, depending on what you do, there might be a situation that you lose contact with the magnet and it pops off. So it's a bit of a trade-off. It's down to what you do. What it does make a big difference is if you use an accessory like this backpack mount on the 360. This is one of the accessories that will actually help you get going a lot quicker, not so much whether you mount the phone in one way or another. When it comes to the stabilization, these three gimbals are very good. And after having used these three gimbals for a number of weeks, I can tell you right now that I don't need to now show you some footage and spend 3, 4, 5 minutes showing you how each one of these gimbals compared to the other. They all have very good stabilization. They had 15 years to perfect the technology, for crying out loud. And when it comes to tracking, each one of these gimbals have a dedicated tracking sensor. The DJI OM7 doesn't, but the 7P does. The same goes for the Insta360, has a built-in tracker and an accessory, and the Hohem also has a dedicated tracker, and all of these three gimbals have gesture control. If you are within a 5-meter range, the tracking is really good, solid and stable. Any of these gimbals will do the job. When it goes past 5 meters, 5 to 10 meters, that's when I think the Insta360 has an advantage over the Hohem and the DJI. The Hohem does feel it's a little bit of a lottery once it goes past 6, 7 meters, and the DJI and the Insta360 give you the better tracking. It feels the DJI picks you up from behind an object in a much more natural and smooth way, whereas the Insta360 feels the tracking is snappier and tighter, which might be more suitable to fast motion or fast moving objects. And all of these three gimbal trackers, they have an LED option on all of them. And in that regard, they all do the job. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. I mean, you got tungsten, you got daylight, and you go up and down. And there might be a slight difference on intensity, but when you need the light, which is when it's low light at nighttime or indoors, for instance, you're not going to have a problem. Either one of these gimbals are going to give you enough with the light that is built into this tracker unit. And these are the similarities. I mean, these three gimbals in many ways are very similar. But when it comes to the differences, this is when you realize that these gimbals are very, very different. But before we go into the differences, I would like you to help me, because I am still amazed that around 90% of people that watch this channel are unsubscribed. So if you like this video, if you feel that you're getting value, please subscribe to the channel, because it genuinely helps to reach out to brands so that I can review more of their products and give you the tutorials that you want. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about the differences, because these three gimbals couldn't be more different. And yes, these three gimbals have an app that it works really well. I like the Mimo app a lot. The Hohem app has improved exponentially over the last 2 years, and now it's an app that you can actually use. You have no problem with functionality. Anything and everything that you need is there. And the Insta360 app, which I think is the better one, because this is an app that you can genuinely feel that they have spent some time working on and integrate it well within the gimbal itself. And it's not just the fact that you have additional features that none of these two gimbals have, like for instance the teleprompting feature. It's the fact that it allows you to record on ProRes, and soon you're going to be able to record on Apple Log. So that basically gives you the best of both worlds. When it comes to the actual design and the buttons, this is where the differences start to become very obvious, okay? Because the DJI gimbal is a design that hasn't changed in years. Personally, I don't think they offer anything new than the OM5, for instance. Definitely nothing new than the OM6. The buttons are exactly the same. You got the joystick, record button, the switch between horizontal and vertical, the LCD. They may as well not put an LCD. I mean, it's just so tiny, it's kind of pointless, really. And the functionality is extremely limited. The Hohem is really nice because this is a detachable controller. And this is really helpful if you do any kind of tracking and you are at a distance and you want to reframe the shot. I think this is really good. And yes, okay, you have the risk of potentially misplacing this, but let's be honest with you. You finish your filming and the first thing you do is you put it back, and this is not gonna fall off, okay? It's nice and tight there. When it comes to the Insta360, it's a much more basic design. It doesn't have the same fancy LED lights as these two gimbals, but in all fairness, it does what it's supposed to do in a portable gimbal. I mean, the gimbal modes, the on-off record, and the switch between horizontal and vertical, and everything else is done in the app itself. All three really and truly are well integrated, they're well designed. Now, this is just down to personal taste. When it comes to mounting the gimbals, obviously the Insta360 and the DJI, they have these magnetic clamps and they lock onto the gimbal very quickly, very solid. I mean, this is not gonna fall off. This is quite solid, although you always have the risk that something's gonna touch it and then it's gonna detach itself. And I prefer these mounts to these MagSafe mounts that you have with either the DJI or the Insta360, because even though it makes sense to have something like this, the problem is that if you start using filters, you need to compensate for that additional weight. And if you mount the phone into here, you can slide it back and forth so that you get the right balance on the gimbal itself. Whereas with a clamp like this is stuck to the MagSafe and there's nothing you can do about it. So if you're the kind of person that uses no filters of any kind or no lenses of any kind, this is actually a good accessory. But if you are someone that uses lenses, filters, I still feel this is a better option, and somehow I feel safer with it. Now, the Hohem has a clamp, and okay, you have to clamp the phone and you might lose a couple of seconds or 3 compared to the other gimbals. But again, you also have to clamp the phone in here. I don't know, this is just down to personal taste. This is a lot more secure than these two because this is not gonna pop off. One of the things that these 3 gimbals are very different to each other, especially one of them, is the tilting range. It is what it is, okay? When you have a portable gimbal like this, it's a very limited tilting range. You put the phone on, and because of the design of this bracket, you have extremely limited tilting range that you can somehow compensate a little bit by extending the selfie stick and angling the hinge a little bit so that you can compensate, especially if you are someone tall. The problem with these 3 gimbals is that if you want to do any creative shot, like going from the ground up or walking close to the ground and then reveal a location, you cannot do with these 3 gimbals easily because you need to go sideways, and then that's not a natural motion. Now, what Insta360 have done is come up with a solution to this problem, and it's really nice. You literally just turn this and then spin it, and now you can go from the ground up and do the crane up shots just as you would with the larger gimbals. This is not something that you're gonna be able to do with either the Hohem or the DJI, and this is one thing that, in my opinion, sets this gimbal apart from them. And in my opinion, is a big, major selling point and advantage over the Insta360. Now, when it comes to vlogging, because these gimbals are so lightweight that you can easily vlog with them and have really nice and smooth footage, this is where also the Insta360 offers something that none of these 2 other gimbals do, because you basically triple tap the gimbal and it will spin around, and then you can use your rear lenses, which are ultimately the lenses that you want to use. Now, the problem is that once you do that, you have absolutely no way of knowing what it is that you're doing because you're looking at the rear of the phone and there is no screen. You have no idea whether your framing is right or wrong. And this is where the Insta360 offers something that these 2 other gimbals don't, and is this round shape mirror-ish that you got here. That means that when you do your vlogging, you can actually see yourself. And obviously it's not gonna give you exactly the same frame that you're gonna be recording on your phone, but if your face is in the middle of the mirror, you're gonna be roughly in the middle of the frame on your phone, and then obviously you can angle and frame yourself. It's not as efficient as having a screen and look at yourself and framing yourself correctly, but at least it's giving you something. And again, these gimbals offer very different ways of monitoring the footage, because this is an area where the DJI and the Insta360 allow you to connect to an Apple Watch and remote view what it is that you're filming. Now, that is an amazing functionality that you don't have on the Hohem, okay? The problem is that not everybody has an Apple Watch, and that's gonna set you back, depending on the model that you go for, anywhere between $200 if you buy secondhand, up to $700 or even $1,000, depending on the model and how fancy you go. Now, the Insta360 also allows you to connect, which I think this is really, really good. They allow you to connect a different smartphone and remote view and control the gimbal through another phone, and that is amazing if you have a second phone, which is not what many people will do. And another phone is gonna set you back $800, $900, $1,000, $2,000, depending on what phone you go for and the model. So that's something that is great if you have another phone lying about. I mean, that is really, really nice. And it's not something that neither the DJI or the Hohem gimbal do, but it's not something that is gonna be for everybody. This is great when you do tracking, okay? And this is, again, something that these three gimbals do very differently. I feel DJI's tracking is actually really good, and I love the fact you can tick a box in the menu and it will keep the right composition and headroom. I just wish they would give us a few more options for framing and composition rather than just the app deciding how the tracking is going to be done. The great thing about the Hohem is that once you start your tracking, you can position yourself and remotely control the framing. It's not just a matter of you yourself positioning yourself at a certain edge on the gimbal. Is the fact that you can tell the gimbal, this is where I am, and I want you to start tracking me at a certain position based on where I am. Now, the Insta360, again, you can see that they have gone to the drawing board and said, how can we do this as good or even better than anybody else? Because obviously the Insta360 don't have a detachable controller as the Hohem does, but they've come up with some really nice solutions. And this is where this gimbal gives you something that none of these two gimbals offer, okay? Now, the first one is the Pro Framing Grid, and this is great because you can select on the screen where exactly you want to be tracked. You select the box and the gimbal will start tracking that box in relation to where you are, and that's really good. The downside of this, though, is that if you are filming yourself and tracking yourself, there is no way to engage this unless you have an extra phone. But many people, if not most people, are not going to have a second phone lying about. If you do, that's great. A workaround that I have found to compensate for this is to literally start tracking anything on the empty frame that you have in front of you, and then select the box where you want the gimbal to start tracking based on what frame you have. And then as you enter the frame, the gimbal will start tracking you exactly where you want it to track. That is, in my opinion, a really great way to compensate for the fact that you don't have a detachable control unit as you have on the Hohem. Now, the Insta360 also gives you the auto zoom and active zoom tracking, and this is really great because what it means is that once you tell the gimbal where you want to be tracked and the headroom that you want to have, it will zoom in and out based on what it is that you do to make sure that it keeps you exactly in the same place. I think this is really great, especially if, not so much if you film yourself, which in itself is great, but if you film people or animals or anything else, I think this is really great. This is a level of functionality that you don't have with these two gimbals. And it goes without saying that all of these three gimbals have a detachable sensor that works with any third-party camera app, and it does the job really well. If you want to use, I don't know, Blackmagic or Filmic Pro or any other app, it works really well, whether you are on iPhone or Samsung. That's really great functionality. All these three gimbals do it, and they do it really well. And one thing that the Insta360 does that none of these two gimbals do as well is the fact that you have Apple Dock integrated within the gimbal itself. And what that means is that you can have the tracking features running with your iPhone default camera app or third-party camera apps, and that, in my opinion, is a big advantage over these two gimbals. Now, one thing that the DJI gimbal offers that none of these two gimbals do is the fact that with this tracker unit, you get an integrated wireless receiver for sound, and I think that is a fantastic idea. The problem with this, I think, is the integration, because it's limited to just the DJI Mic Mini, and not everybody is going to have a Mic Mini. I would love if they could integrate different microphones like the Mic 2 or some other wireless microphone. That would be really, really helpful. But in itself, it's something that these two gimbals don't do. And when it comes to battery life, this is again something that these three gimbals do very similar. The Hohem gives you around 13 hours. These two gimbals give you about 10 hours. The plus side is that these two gimbals do reverse charging. The Hohem doesn't. Do you even need reverse charging? I mean, if you do, obviously the Hohem is not a good option. But again, in everyday filming where you go fully charged with everything, I don't know. Is this even important to you? Let me know in the comments below, because maybe I think this is not important, and to you this is a really big deal. I have worked with these three brands in the past, but I am not married to any of them, okay? So the DJI gimbal, okay? This is a gimbal that personally I don't like. I mean, I don't understand the point of this gimbal. They released this gimbal, and the only difference with the OM6 is this controller. And there really is no difference on the actual tracking between using this controller and the DJI Mimo app. If you have a DJI Mic Mini and you want that seamless integration, maybe. But you can use any wireless microphone with these three gimbals, and they are getting smaller and smaller. So I personally think you should avoid the DJI OM7 and the OM7P at all costs. Now, the Hohem is a good gimbal. This is a solid gimbal. I love the fact that you have this detachable control unit. The tracking is really good. It's cheaper than the Insta360, so you know you're gonna be saving a fair amount of money. And if budget is tight, this is a solid gimbal that I personally think is great. The tracking is fantastic. This is great. I was surprised when Insta360 sent it to me, because I gave them a very colorful review of the original Flow, and I absolutely despise the Flow. But on the Flow 2, they fixed everything. This is a solid gimbal. The fact that you can do crane up type of shots, they've innovated a solution to an issue that any of these gimbals have. If you have the money to spend, this is the best out of the three. If money is tight, the Hohem gimbal is another fantastic gimbal.